Jake here for American Trucks, and in this video we're taking a look at the Eibach Pro Truck Stage 2R coilover kit fitting 2014 to 2018 Silverado and Sierra 1500s. If you're looking for a no-compromise lift kit for your Silverado or Sierra, Eibach has got your solution. This is a bolt-on kit that's going to replace your stock shocks and struts, and it gives you adjustability, great ride quality, and extra height, and the kit comes in at a pretty good price to boot. If you mention suspension modifications to any vehicle enthusiast, Eibach is likely going to come to their mind pretty quickly. Eibach is one of the leaders in suspension technology and development. They've been making components for all manner of vehicles and motorsport applications for over 70 years. So safe to say, when this kit came through the door, I was pretty excited to check it out. So what we have here is the Pro Truck Stage 2R coilover kit. And there are quite a few important things to touch on here. First and foremost, this is going to give your truck more height in the front end, essentially functioning as a leveling kit. They can be run anywhere from your stock ride height up to about 4 inches of total lift, so it gives you a lot of adjustability. Now with everything set to its highest setting, you can get up to 33-inch tires on the truck without having to make other modifications. Any larger than that, and you're likely going to run into issues with rubbing and have to do some trimming. Now, it is also important to note that since these are adjustable, if you're running them at the stock ride height or at lower settings and not that full ride height, you're going to need to adjust your tire sizes accordingly, so those 33s may not fit if you're running at a lower height. These front coilovers are adjustable using the threaded perch right down here at the bottom. So you can just use this included tool to adjust this and crank it up if you want. Now, since these are coilovers, as you can see, they come fully assembled just like this with new springs, top mounts, and lower bushings. And that makes them a bolt-in solution. And they come packed with all the benefits of Eibach's Pro Truck 2 coilover 2.0s. These are a nitrogen-charged monotube damper setup, and it's designed to give you a great balance of ride quality and control, whether you're running down the street or down the trail. And that's thanks to the variable force valving technology inside. It uses a specially designed valve stack inside of the damper to smooth out bumps and allow you to stay in control of the truck. And they also allow for increased overall travel too, especially since you're able to adjust the height. Now in the rear, things get even a little more interesting. As you've probably already noticed, you get a set of remote reservoir shock, which that alone is a cool enough note on which I could end the video. But we're not going to leave it at just that. These go beyond your standard monotube or even twin tube shocks with this remote reservoir. So this is going to increase your fluid capacity, and having that negates the need for nitrogen charging inside the main body of the shock, and it's going to help prevent aeration or bubbling inside that can occur under heavy use. Now these, like the front shocks, are designed to stand up to heavier loads, which makes them perfect for a truck that sees overlanding duty or one that just hauls a lot of stuff often. But it will also help keep your truck's ride quality and general manners controlled out on the street, and thus will allow for better control out on the trail as well. As you might expect, construction is also a standout. Now the bodies of the shocks are made from 6061 T6 aluminum, and all your mounting points, especially on the rear and down on the front here, are anodized for a cool look and some extra protection. Inside, you're gonna find 46mm pistons, heavy-duty zinc-coated cylinders, and this nitro steel shaft. The springs on the front coils are made from your typical steel, and they're finished in this really nice silver powder coating to help protect them against rust and corrosion. Plus, again, you get all new bushings front and rear for the shocks, and new top mounts for the front struts as well. Plus, these come pre-assembled, making installation just that much easier. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. First, the price. Now pricing for this set comes in at about $1,600, which for a coilover kit like this one is actually a pretty good value, especially considering you're getting adjustable coils up in the front and remote reservoirs in the rear. It's a serious price, but it's a serious bit of kit, and to get that kind of feature set from others, you'd have to spend quite a bit more in most cases. So if you're looking for something like this that gives you the adjustability and the really solid ride quality and control, you can't really do much better than these Eibachs. Installation is going to get a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you should expect this job to take you about 3 hours to complete. Now, while this is a bolt-on kit that's simply going to replace your factory struts and your rear shocks, and there's no need for a spring compressor, getting all this stuff in there and getting it all adjusted is going to take some time, so plan for that. But overall, this is a very straightforward job. These again are just going to bolt in right in place of your stock front struts, and these guys are going to bolt in place of your stock rear shocks. So with that, let's head on out to the shop and we'll walk you through the process.
Tools required for this install include a couple different size impact or air guns, a hammer, a ratchet, 14, 18, and 21 millimeter ratcheting wrenches, 15 and 17 millimeter wrenches, 21 millimeter deep socket, 10, 15, 17, and 21 millimeter swivel sockets, a hook, and a pry bar. So the first thing we're gonna do is take a 10 millimeter socket to remove these two 10 millimeter bolts holding our ABS line brackets into place. And we pop that bracket out of place. We're gonna throw our bolt back in so we don't lose it. We'll do the same thing on the front. Next, we can remove our sway bar end link. Now you're gonna wanna do this one after another on each side. That way we have it completely freed up. We can pull our sway bar up to get our end link out. So I've got a 15 millimeter socket and wrench to take this off. Next, we can come to our tie rod end. We're gonna take a 21 millimeter socket to remove this nut and pop our ball joint out of the knuckle. Now you can push up a little bit on your impact gun to pop it out. And then we'll push that off to the side. Next, we can come to our upper control arm ball joint. We have an 18 millimeter nut that we can take an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench to remove. Now we're gonna leave that nut a couple threads on, and then we can bang the knuckle with a hammer to break our ball joint free. So now I'm just gonna turn the knuckle to the side to get a better angle, and we'll take a hammer and smack the knuckle here to pop that free. Now, since our foolproof method of hitting it with a hammer didn't work, we're on to the next best thing, which is our ball joint remover tool. We have the top here sitting on the top of the knuckle, the bottom is on the stud, and it'll tighten and pop that free. So I've got a 19 millimeter wrench to tighten down this bolt. That'll put the pressure on it and pop our ball joint out. So now with our ball joint popped free, we can pull down on the upper control arm and remove that nut the rest of the way. Next, we can come to the top of our strut tower and loosen up these three 18 millimeter nuts. So I've got an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench to get these off. Now with the nuts at the top of our strut tower loosened, we can come down to the bottom and remove our two lower strut bolts. I've got a 17 millimeter socket for our bolt side and a 17 millimeter wrench for the nut side. Now for the second one, just be careful of the lower control arm coming down a little bit. Now with our lower strut bolts removed, we can go back up top and fully remove our nuts and pull our strut out. So we'll get back in there with that same 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench to do so. Now once we have our strut removed on one side, we can hop over to the other side and do that same process. Now for this kit, we are going to need to remove our upper control arm to make way for our new one. We have two 21mm nuts, one on each side, that we can take a 21mm socket to remove. I've got a 21mm wrench to hold the bolt that's attached to our plate on the inside. And then we can remove our nut. Pull our bolts out. And then we'll pull our upper control arm out and do the same thing on the other side. So now with our factory strut removed, we can install our new one. And then we'll just thread one of our nuts on top just to hold it in place, and we can get our lower strut bolts into place. Next, we can install our lower strut bolts. And then we'll get our washer and our nut on the other side. And now we can grab our 17mm socket and wrench to tighten those bolts down. And now we can come back up top and thread on our other two nuts. And then we'll take our 14mm ratcheting wrench to tighten these down. And we can spin our rearmost bolts the rest of the way. Next, we can reconnect our upper control arm to our knuckle. I've got a pry bar here that I can get into the coil spring, so I can pry down on the upper control arm to get it in there, and then I'll twist my nut on. You want to make sure that this ABS wire is on the outside of there so it doesn't get caught back in there. So now that I've got that ABS wire in front of the ball joint, we can pry down. And then we'll grab our nut and thread that onto the back side. And now we can grab our 18mm ratcheting wrench to tighten that nut down. Now if your ball joint is spinning like ours, you can take a pry bar, put some force on it and tighten it down. Next, we can reconnect our tie rod end to our knuckle. I've got our nut, slide that through the knuckle, put our nut on the other side. And now we can grab our 21mm socket to tighten that down. Next, we can reinstall our sway bar end link. So we'll get that in between our sway bar and our lower control arm, thread our bolt through. and then get our bushing and our nut on top. Now you're gonna wanna install it on this side and then install it on the other side before you tighten it down, because it'll be nearly impossible to get it in on that side once this side's tightened down. Now we can pull down on our sway bar to get our threads to show and thread our nut on. Now I've already put our end link in on the other side, so we can just grab that 15mm socket and wrench to tighten this down. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Now coming back up top, we can reinstall those two 10mm bolts that are holding in our brake line and ABS line brackets. And then we'll grab our 10mm socket to tighten these down. And now we can repeat that process on the other side. Now moving on to the rear, we just need to remove our shock. We have a 21mm bolt and nut at the bottom here and a 21mm bolt up top. So I'll grab a 21mm socket and wrench for the bottom and a 21mm socket for the top. Now I've got a pole jack here to support the weight of the axle as we remove our shock. And now we can take that 21mm socket for our top bolt. Now once we have our shock removed from one side, we can do that same thing on the other side. So now moving on to the rear, we have our new shock. We're gonna get our bolt to get it into the upper mount first. We're gonna leave that a little bit loose until we get our bolt through the lower mount, and then we can go back and tighten everything down. So now we can raise our shock up into place. Our reservoir is going to point away from our mount. And then we'll get our bolt a couple threads in, and then we can work on our bottom mount. So now we can get our lower shock into the mount. I'm gonna push it up against that and then get a pry bar. Now that we've got our bolt through, we can throw our nut on the other side. And then we'll take that 21mm wrench and socket to tighten that down. And now we'll go back up to the top and tighten down that 21mm bolt. Now we can take our 21mm socket to tighten down our top bolt. Now once we have our shock installed on one side, we can do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Eibach Pro Truck Coilover Kit Stage 2R for your 2014 to 2018 Silverado 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.